Gevurah is such. We described last week that Gevurah is metaphorically compared to fire. And as important as fire is as important as heat and sun is, if there is too much of it, it starts becoming extremely dangerous and destructive. So when we cross within self a certain demarcation line, and I think that demarcation line is going to be different in each person, because each person is an absolutely unique paradigm. So we'll talk in generalities, and then you self-apply it. When too much restraint and discipline is employed in our behavior, that is going to lead to a kind of toxic roller coaster that is going to be hard to get off. It generally is hard to get off a roller coaster, but
safely.
But the Gevurah roller coaster, once it goes past this demarcation line, the fire within Gevurah is going to be extremely destructive.
And permanent, usually.
Huh?
And permanent.
I don't like, I hear what you're saying, but I don't like to say permanent, because the idea of tshuva is always present, and there is always unbelievable opportunities, sometimes as slight as it may be, and you're right, Gabby, but there are, the door is never closed. So I don't like to say, I don't like to use the word permanent, because I don't think there's too many things in this world that are permanent. Okay?
And the metaphor that helps keep that as a possibility is a forest that burns and the new growth.
Sure.
So
Yes, you're right.
this is just dealing with metaphors.
Yeah.
The actor can do tshuva and have whatever degree of tshuva, but the actee who receives the actor's gevurah, that's possibly permanent.
Possibly
Or
much.
closer to permanent, I think. What do you think? Am I off track?
The damage is done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm seeing less
See,
in situations.
the in one sense you are correct. The effects of crossing the red line into toxic land, the effects of living there for years or even decades, right? Living there, the effects certainly leave an impression. But, I counter with a but.
Good.
However, as much as an impression is left on the actee, the definition of real tshuva in a Talmudic and mystical manner, tshuva is a gift that the mystics describe, that once a realization and an enlightenment comes to mind, and one chooses to move residents from toxic land into real living, tshuva is such a gift, say the mystics, that the impression left from toxic land when tshuva is done does not remain any longer. The impression that was left after years of living in that kind of mode, if tshuva is really done properly and completely, the impression left from all of that negative stuff actually turns into benefits once tshuva is done. It's not as if all of the negative toxic stuff is now canceled out or disappears because I now live here. They actually, they are, the negative stuff is schlepped back into the positive zone, and all of the positive, all of the negative impressions that layer after layer after layer on our psyche, after tshuva, turn into actual benefits. I become a better person. I elevate all of the negativity. It's not that the negativity disappears only and is canceled out now. All of the negative crap accumulated once tshuva is done has now been elevated.
But that's to the actor still.
Right.
You're speaking to the individual who's doing
Yes.
the action.
Yes, yes.
And
Also, the receiver of the action, I'm hearing you, and in my own life, I have found that it's a very good parameter to know if tshuva has been done. If you look back and you still feel the schmutz, then you know that you haven't really worked through it. If you're able to elevate it to another level where there was benefit in the learning process, then you know that your tshuva has been done. I mean, we all have had experiences that are, we carried with us for a very long time, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
That actually is Maimonides' acid test for tshuva. That's how he described. That's the acid test. If you want to know what your tshuva was like, if you feel that all of the negative impressions have now, that you are able to say, I am so happy I was such a miserable person here because that misery after tshuva allowed me a heightened consciousness, and all of the schmutz stuff, comes with me, and all of a sudden all the schmutz looks, so pristine and so, right? That is the acid test of whether you are a new person through the process of tshuva.
But the recipient, the one who was on the receiving
I'm
end of all
talking
that,
about
that's
the
it,
recipient.
as the recipient.
Don is
Yes.
saying that too.
Yeah, but as the purveyor of that damage, you may not ever know if you're, you know.
But it doesn't matter, what you do to me is none of your business. The way I handle it is none of your business, it's mine. And what you do with what you've done is your business and your work, and I'm not trying to be mean or nasty,
No,
I'm
no,
just.
I know.
But I had a teacher that used to say, you know, how you feel about me is none of my business. It's, my work is my work and your work is your work, and you can do tshuva for being the person doing the bad deed, and you would know as well by the acid test.
Shuva is also apologizing to the other and creating rectification, so it does,
Right.
and,
Right.
And it may not
Right.
have the yeah.
okay,
Yes,
but
we don't
anyway,
need
to
to-
move on,
yeah.
because we do wanna
Move
get to
on.
Tiferet.
Okay,
Tiferet is the goal for today.
so with Gevurah,
Repentance.
What is
Yeah.
tshuva?
What? I'm sorry?
Tshuva.
I get.
Oh.
And turning around.
repentance, returning back to self, back to source. So
However you want. Shuva.
Teshuvah. Teshuva.
So when you put the "t" in front, how does that change the word? Oh, instead of chew,
Tshuva.
oh,
Shuva.
oh, okay, I
Tin-
always think
tin-
of it as CH.
No.
Okay, there's
Probably.
which is why there's a T in front instead of CH.
Right.
What was the definition again?
Repentance or returning back to self, returning back to source. Okay, so the nature of Gevurah is such that it is a fire, and however, therefore it has to be, we have to exercise a whole lot more of impactful consciousness when it comes to Gevurah, because Gevurah is, it's not only, the translation is not only strength and power, but it is, its nature is so powerful that if misused, the effects of too much control, too much discipline, too much restraint turns into, and I had a whole list in my mind, a distortion of tshuva is going to create a miserable life. And that's why we have to be very careful of how we utilize this attribute of tshuva, of Gevurah. Misused, Gevurah turns into an individual who is constantly and perpetually angry. Gevurah misused, you will find yourself being pissed off at every little thing that happens in your life will turn into, every molehill will turn into a mountain of anger, a mountain of frustration. Gevurah misused will start controlling your life instead of you controlling life. Life around you will be your controller. The way people look at you, the way people smile at you or don't smile at you, everything will be disturbing to you. It will ruffle your feathers. Every little thing is going to ruffle your feathers if you are in this toxic side of Gevurah. It is like a fire. Like if you have a fire, and you go like this to the fire or to the flame. Every little thing is going to affect this flame, this fire, into an uncontrollable situation. So Gevurah unleashed in the Torah is called Eish Ochelet, a consuming fire, that everything in its wake is consumed. And because Gevurah is associated with restraint and control and over-control and anger, we have to be very careful not to cross the line. Surprisingly, according to some mystics, when we get to Tiferet very soon, but according to some mystics, Yitzchak is the prototype of Gevurah, and the female counterpart, the female representative of Gevurah, according to some mystics, surprisingly, is Sarah. Other mystics say when we get to Tiferet that Sarah is represented by Tiferet. But interestingly enough, this is a little out of, would you not say that this is a little out of character, that one would think that Holy Mother Sarah, right, wife to Abraham, who is Ish Chesed, that her sphera should be Gevurah? Is that not just a touch surprising?
No.
Okay, why not?
Because I feel that it was Sarah that set future generations in motion by having she's the one that decided that Abraham should have an affair with her handmaiden. She's the one that decided that the handmaiden and the son should no longer be there. She was controlling the reality of what was going on within Abraham and her life for generations.
She was the discipline, the control factor in that.
Most successful partnerships require a chesed and a Gevurah.
Right.
Look at IJKL.
Yeah.
Is that why is it that the mystics say that she was in Gevurah? What is their reason? The mystics that say that she is representing Gevurah, why do they say that?
Mainly because of that, of the Torah's narrative of how she took control, how she practically implemented Abraham's expansive kind of expansive consciousness, and in given certain circumstances that always come about in life, and we know those, Sarah was the one to create focus. You're having a domestic problem between who is going to be the spiritual progenitor of the Jewish. Is it going to be Isaac? Is it going to be Ishmael? Is it going to be this, that? How do we do, right? How do we deal with the two brothers that are influencing each other, and they're playing and blah, 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 right? So to speak, the mystics say Abraham's chesed couldn't pinpoint a practical solution or a practical implementation. It was Sarah that said, this is how it has to be, and I'm going to arrange stuff in a way that our domestic and our future progeny is going to blossom in a proper way. So it was that Sarah's Gevurah attribute that actually fulfilled the Abrahamic,
It's vision and implementation.
the vision and implementation.
Akiva?
There, yes.
At the same time, Sarah is one of the, as far as I know, the only matriarch, I could be wrong, who had two names, Sarai and Sarah, is that right? It was changed?
Yeah.
So the way I see it, if you go back to before her becoming disciplined, when she and Abraham are roaming the desert, and he has her pose as his sister, and and she forgives that. That would be the height of Chesed. And Chesed and Gevurah come together to form Tiferet. So I can see how she could be actually the combination of all three, as probably we all are the combination of all of them.
Very beautiful. I mean, that's why the mystics are torn, whether she belongs in Gevurah or in Tiferet, and the answer is when there is such a dispute, the answer is you're both right. Okay. Okay, so we're going to end. So one important thing, I think Donna touched on it, and so did your question. When you said actor and actee and stuff. So last note on Gevurah. If Gevurah is the attribute of setting limits to ourselves, that if Gevurah is the attribute that tells us, I am in control. I am control, vis-a-vis Chesed. I am in control, like Sarah consciousness. I have the large expanse of Chesed, but I know where to go, where to channel all of this Chesed, and how to channel it so it is implemented and made manifest properly, right? That the end result of my channeling and self-limiting is going in the right direction, that is going to bear fruit and is going to blossom, right? If that is Gevurah, then one last note on it. We have to consider Gevurah in terms of self-discipline and self-control on a personal level, juxtaposed to exercising Gevurah on someone else. Now that is already a little different story. When I exercise Gevurah for myself, that's one thing. Do I have the same rights vis-a-vis Gevurah on others? Or do I have to qualify my whole state of Gevurah when it comes to someone else?
Is that rhetorical?
Can I be, you know, if I'm very Gevurah-dick with Akiva, right? Do I have that same right to exercise Gevurah, or my expectations of Gevurah, with that same semblance of strictness on somebody else? Do my standards of Gevurah, are they easily conveyed or translatable to someone else? Or when it comes to someone else, I have to be careful about my standard is my standard. Who says that I have the right to impose my standard on you? That's also why Gevurah is very, not dangerous, but it's very difficult. When it comes to Chesed, it's a little easier. I love myself. I protect myself. I'm doing all things for self-preservation and self-development. It's very easy to say, well, my standard. I can easily see that I can use that same thing when it comes to Joyce.
Is this rhetorical?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I'm still
There's a million things I could add.
I'm still in the middle of it.
Just checking.
So when it comes to Chesed, it's easier to say my standard can be yours. I can impose my standard because it has to do with Chesed. But when it comes to Gevurah, that is already a little different. It's a little different because imposing restraint and control on others. Okay, let's open it up for 2 seconds, two or three comments. Gabby was first, and then
I
Joyce.
think you need a little bit of chesed. Chesed, in order to do this, if you do it on yourself, you're the judge. But if you're doing it on somebody else, you sort of balance out. You cannot. You have an obligation to help others to be in the right way. But in order to do it in Gevurah way only, you might not succeed. So you sort of have to be the yin yang. You have to have Chesed and Gevurah in order to deliver the Gevurah that you think they should have.
So you're saying that
Gevurah alone for others.
a sprinkling of Chesed is going to be needed when it comes to imposing your standard of Gevurah on others.
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's
very
my
good,
opinion.
very good. Joyce
Real,
was
real
next.
short. I taught kindergarten for a couple of years. I didn't love it, but I loved the creativity. But I felt that I was a wild animal tamer. I was taking these delightful personalities and exuberant children, and I felt my job was to force them to stand in line and to be quiet when the principal talked. Oh, it was painful to me.
Yeah.
Really terrible.
It's very, that's what our society is.
Wow.
That's what we do to our children.
That's what we do.
You can't talk now. I know you're excited, just like us in your class. It's rhetorical, be quiet, wait your turn, so-and-so's first.
Don't skip, walk.
You just illustrated how volatile, right, these two polarities, chesed and gevurah, are. Yeah, Jim.
To add to the volatility, I absolutely agree with you that the standards that I choose to put upon myself for living apply to me, and not necessarily to somebody else. At the same time, and I think you applied it in chesed, whereas I apply it, because when I do it in Gevurah, when I am in a situation with an individual who repeats the same behavior, and they're aware of it, I have the right, whether it's from chesed or Gevurah, and it's probably a combination of both, to remove myself from the situation. And as Donna so wisely taught me one time, how do I know when I have arrived at Teshuvah with this? It's not necessarily when I walk into the bear pit again, but it's when I can be in the situation and not be reactive.
Yeah, yeah.
But to remove myself from the situation, whether that's Gevurah or chesed, is a way to get to Teshuvah.
Yeah, beautiful. I would say that removing yourself from a situation would be under the category of Gevurah. Because it takes a lot of Gevurah.
But it's
It
also
takes-
chesed because you're taking care of yourself.
On that level, everything is chesed, you know. But that exercising of restraint, of restraint, of removing oneself, of shutting up and removing is like that Pirkei Avot that I quoted the second class, the first intro into Gevurah. Ezehu Gibor, who can truly be considered a strong, powerful person, asks Pirkei Avot, who is truly powerful? Hakovesh et Yitzro, one who is able to conquer their own inclinations. Someone who has a propensity towards getting angry, someone who gets easily pissed off at things, at everyone around them. You look at me the wrong way, man. Like, boom, you're out. you're X out. Someone who has that propensity is somebody who is unable to conquer their own inclinations. They have little Gevurah, little restraint in them. Someone who is truly powerful is not someone who can bang the other person, who can insult the other person. It's someone who can control themselves, control themselves out of a situation. And that brings us to our last quote. I quote this all the time, we've done this many times, but it's fitting here. A 3-word expression from the Talmud. It has to do with fully exercising and being fully conscious of our capacity in Gevurah energy, of constraint and restraint, is tzadikim libam birshutam. Tzadikim, the righteous ones, libam, their hearts, or their emotions, in this context, their hearts or their emotions, birshutam, are in their own possession. They own. Who are tzaddikim, who are righteous people? Those who own their emotions, not whose emotions own them. Those who are in control of their emotions. And that takes a lot of Gevurah. So, how is your Gevurah? Remember the original handout I gave you? So, in the last year, gauge plus or minus in Gevurah. Does your Gevurah, do you have too much Gevurah? Yeah.
No, do you have too much of the, do you have enough of the right Gevurah?
Yeah, do you have enough of the right Gevurah? Are you living in Gevurah toxic land or in Gevurah libam birshutam? I own my emotions. I am in full control. I am in control of my emotions.
That means without suppressing and without repressing the emotions.
Repressing and suppressing are they are distortions of Gevurah. In what areas in your life would you like to see a little bit more restraint? Let's do that.
Let's just think
What
silently.
Rhetorically.
No, let's open it up.
Let's go around the room and tell the other person where we think they're Gevurah.
Yeah.
You're such a troublemaker.
That would be.
Turn to your left and start talking.
You're in perfect spot. Stand still.
So I was saying, this
Is there? Let's bring it down to.
That's my left.
Let's be in Sarah consciousness. Is there any one area in your life that you can identify where you feel, in all honesty, in all sincerity, that you need some good, healthy Gevurah, some good, healthy restraint and constraint in?
Yes.
That you want to go. You want to go a little 1 or 2 notches more channeled, more focused. Is there any one area of your life? Is there any one person in your life where you would, like to exercise on a personal level a little bit more constraint and restraint? And then conversely, is there any situation or person that you have been overly Gevurah-dick with? You have been living in this area in a too much control, too much judgment. Gevurah is judgment, right? Too much judgment, and that you would like to diminish that Gevurah and enter into a little bit more of a sublime Gevurah. Do you want to diminish? Do you want to cool it a little bit on your harsh judgment of individual acts? These are things, if you do not consider them, we're just simply wasting our time here on theoretical things. If we learn about Gevurah and we leave it at that and we don't implement and we don't say, I'm going to take Gevurah, I'm going to do the pluses and minuses, I'm going to take some of my relationships and say, is this one, do I have a little secret angel saying, you're too Gevurah-dick with this, with your lover, you're too, stop it, or bring it down a notch or two. You're too Gevurah-dick, or you're not Gevurah-dick enough. If we don't implement these things, then we're just simply wasting time. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that it's interesting, the conversation, this Gevurah has been so impactful and resonated with the group, because anybody who has 2 feet under them on this earth lives it.
Yeah, this is, like I said, it's happening. At Chesed, Gevurah, all of the Sfirot are happening all the time in our lives. Always. And they actually, all 7 of them, all 7 of them are happening simultaneously every second of the day, because they are world, Gevurah in Chesed, and Chesed in now Tiferet, and they're all, okay, Tiferet, okay, Tiferet. If my wife and myself ever had a daughter, which wasn't meant to be, but if we ever had a daughter, the name that we had in mind for our little daughter was going to be Tiferet. Not only what it means, but how it sounds. Tiferet. Okay. Tiffy. Okay. So let's try to define some of the words that are used to define Tiferet. 99% of the time in Sfirotic charts, Tiferet is translated as splendor. I even like that word. When's the last time you used the word splendor? Right? It's hardly ever. It's an underused word, but it's such a beautiful word. Splendor. Splendor. What?
They named the sweet and low Splendor.
Splenda.
She's from New York, it's the same thing, splendor,
It's
splendor.
That's what I was gonna say too, it's splendor in New York.
Donna, an extra R between the.
Hey,
Yeah,
water,
right.
water.
Yeah.
Water.
Anyhow, I like the word tiferet. I love the word splendor.
Rabbi?
Yes, so it's either the normative is splendor or beauty. Okay.
On our sheet, Hode says splendor.
Sorry?
Hode says splendor.
What's the percentage say?
Oh,
On this sheet.
okay.
Chart?
Yeah, but splendor and beauty.
Yeah.
It's a different twist on splendor.
Oh, yeah. No.
Usually hode is translated as glory.
Glory. It's just a twist on
Yeah,
the
yeah, it's
English
a-
word.
Yeah.
Glory, did he say glory?
Glory is usually hode. Okay. But outside of the normative definitions, so hold that consciousness of splendor and beauty. Hold on to that for a little bit later on. In essence, Tiferet, in its proper context, and its proper context is, we have chesed, we have the controlling factor of Gevurah, and that blends into the next sphera over here, which is really over here, right? We have chesed and Gevurah, and Tiferet is here. The heart place, we'll talk about that. So I want to introduce the idea that Tiferet really is the place of the energy center that holds our vision and our higher purpose. So we start with Tiferet. Tiferet is so. I say this about every sphera, but Tiferet is really where it's at. You know, I said that with Gevurah and I said that with Chesed, and I'll keep on saying it for the rest. The assumption behind Tiferet is as follows. On a cosmic level, we always start off this sphere on a cosmic level. All creation, all reality, anything we call reality, our existence in this world, the fact that we have individual bodies, we have individual consciousness, we are all like individually so unique in our own way. And to stretch that a little further, as we are unique and special, so on a cosmic level, we all have a purpose. So on a cosmic level, all of creation has a purpose and has a meaning behind it. What that meaning is, what that purpose is, we don't know yet. We might not know. But the assumption behind Tiferet is that all of creation has a purpose and a meaning. It is our reality, the fact that we are alive and that the world is alive. The assumption behind it is it has a meaning and has a purpose. And the purpose and meaning behind all of creation becomes fully evolved and fully conscious with human beings. Human beings in Jewish tradition in general, but certainly in Jewish mystical tradition. But it is one of the fundamental ideas within Judaism that it is the human being that is the maraschino cherry of creation. As beautiful as the rest of the world is, and this is going back to the 6 days of creation, right? The evolutionary process that reflects billions of years. Now that we know that the 6 days of creation reflects billions of years of evolution, that the fundamental idea within Judaism is that the human being is the maraschino cherry of creation.
That's beautiful.
You just like maraschino cherries.
Are they sprinkled?
And sprinkles.
Multicolored sprinkle.
That idea is supported by the primary idea in Genesis of Ki b'Tselem Elohim Nivra Ha'adam. Man is the maraschino cherry of creation because man was created in and with the image of the divine. What does being created in the image of the divine mean? Is really, on a Genesis level, mankind, humankind, each individual human being is ultimately an ambassador of God on earth. That's what it means to be made, to be created in the image of God, that somehow we are God's ambassadors.
That's my cry.
Man is a microcosm. We are, in the words of the mystics, we are individually, we are all a miniature world. There was a great mystic in the 15th century called Isaac the Blind. And he coined he coined the word describing humankind, each individual. We are all an olam katan. We are all a small world. What's the Disney thing? It's a small world after all. It's a small world after all. What's the next? It's a small world after all.
It's a small world.
Rejoice God and the mountains divide.
And all rejoice goes through that rise.
Anyhow, Disney took it from Isaac the Blind.
I call them, I do that with kids.
It's beautiful to think about that. It's beautiful to think about that. That we are an olam katan. Humankind. We sometimes falsely, with false humility, we think sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, little old me, you know, we come, we're born, we live, we die. What in this the vastness of the world and the vastness of human history, little old me, you know, like I'm like a va'anochi afar ve'efer. I am just like a little, like Abraham said, I'm a little grain of sand, right? I'm a little grain of sand in a gigantic beach of other little grains of sand. Like, does it, do I really matter? You know, Isaac the Blind said, no, you're an olam katan. You are an entire world. There is universes and worlds contained within each human being. The potential, the capacity of what a human being is capable of doing. You are an olam katan.
Which is why to save a life is to save a world.
Yes, yes, because each individual is a world.
That's great.
This idea of we are each and every one of us instead of saying olam katan, a small world, I would say we are each a small universe, because I like that we think of universe as extremely, nearly infinitely expansive. So we are small universes. And what makes us so unique, the human being as the maraschino cherry of creation, not to put down the animal world, the doggy world, the doggy world. Not to put down the world of vegetation and the world, the universe of the mineral world, right? The 6 days of creation. Not to put, not to relegate them to a secondary. They are secondary to the human, but not to put them down, but to say that there is something unique about the human being, that the human being becomes the source of the height, the crown of creation. What exactly is that about human beings that puts us on such a pedestal, that creates the maraschino cherry out of us? And it is as follows. It is our capacity to grow beyond ourselves, to seek higher and more inclusive vision that makes us the crown of creation. The mere fact that we are able to grow beyond ourselves, something that a little doggy cannot do. Something that no part of creation is capable of doing except for the human being. Our capacity to grow beyond ourselves. So think of creation for a moment. And you will find that there is miraculousness in creation, but there is nothing more miraculous than our capacity to go beyond ourselves. That is the exclusive territory of the human being. And that's how the human being has evolved into a place where we are right now.
Can you use different words to say to go beyond ourselves?
I will.
Okay.
It's coming.
Okay.
And you have 12 minutes.
Okay? We are able, if not innately propelled to seek higher and more inclusive vision. And that is unique to the human being. And sometimes we don't really use that capacity as much as we should. We are satisfied to be, we are too satisfied to be like Sadie.
Not to denigrate Sadie.
Not to denigrate, hey, Sadie is the most perfect doggy, because she is doing exactly what a doggy should be doing.
Yes.
And she gets like extra marks.
It's A in doggy.
She gets A+ in doggy chart.
She's a silver stool.
But sometimes we human beings, we think it's good or cool or purposeful to be a little bit like Sadie, to eat when we're supposed to eat, to poop when we're supposed to poop, to sleep whenever we want to sleep, which is most of the time in her case, to run and scamper whenever we want.
Be lovable.
And we forget that our uniqueness does not lie in those areas. Those areas belong, mamish, to the animal world. To the animal world. And sometimes we are more than happy to live in that animal world of comfort. I do this, blah, 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 blah. My life is terrific. And we forget that our uniqueness lies in generating and seeking higher vision for ourselves. Because that's where the uniqueness of humankind lies. Not in the animal world schedule. We are the only ones, we are the only immanent ones that are capable of transcendence. That's putting it in a different way. We are capable of transcendence. We are capable of a vision higher than ourselves. And the potential is enormous and infinite. Our potential. And we, again, without being too negative, we settle for less. We are satisfied with much less than the endowed gift that we were given.
I said so true.
So true.
We're not satisfied, we don't believe without it.
Yes. So Tiferet, the energy zone of Tiferet points to exactly that. It points to our capacity to be visionaries. Let's simply put it as that. Our capacity to be visionaries. That is the Tzelem Elohim within us. That is the end result, the product of the being created in the image of God, is that we are now able and have the potentiality to become visionaries. What does a visionary mean? One that can see wondrous possibilities that have not yet been actualized. Sadie can't do that. Sadie can't see the wondrous possibilities of things that have not yet been actualized in her life. We can. And that's an unbelievable dynamic gift.
Are we tapping into Bina and Chokmah with this?
Always. I mean, the prior sfirot are the seeds that are resultant in that.
There's some people who can do that.
So, the spherotic energy of Tiferet is the sphere of vision. It's the sphere of purpose, because vision brings us to purpose. And also, Tiferet, within the sphere of Tiferet, lies together with vision and purpose is the attribute of very high-leveled capabilities of organization. Believe it or not.
Or finding a partner that has that. But it's true, sometimes you.
That's where vision comes in.
Right. And you build a team, like,
Yeah.
not everybody is all
But even
names.
on a very simple level,
Yes,
Imagination.
because Tiferet is so broad, because it's referring to vision and higher purpose, it necessarily has to contain an attribute of organization. Without that organization bit, whether we do it ourselves or someone else does it for us, or we employ or act, get assistance from somebody else. But the Tiferet zone is so broad and expansive. It in and of itself requires a type of attribute of organizing. Imagine we are visionaries and we can't differentiate between the multiplicity of our visions. That is
differentiate
good.
between the multiplicities of our visions.
Between the multiplicity and diversity of our visions, if we don't have the sort of organizational skill built into the system, that makes for a great candidate for an insane asylum, right? That's called, we call that psychotic, right? When all of our visions start crossing like this with no ability to organize. I have a vision for this part of my life, for this part of my life, and that they're not all intersecting in infinite chaos, right? So part of Tiferet is vision, but with organization, just as Chesed needs Gevurah. But why Tiferet is called splendor or beauty is because when visions and meaning and purpose and transcendence, when I am getting out of my innate natural world, and I am riding the wave that I call transcendence, that I define as spirituality. Not religion, but spirituality means I am going outside of myself. I'm going outside of Sadie, and I'm exercising that human capacity of being a visionary outside of myself. That is Tiferet, and that is why Tiferet is called beauty. That's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful place to be.
So part of the visionary is, and two words get short shrift, curiosity and imagination.
Very nice, very nice. I'm a huge proponent of imagination, because without imagination, imagination is very closely related to being a visionary. We don't get our vision unless it is somehow fueled by the seed of imagination.
12 noon.
Okay.
So this is a perfect. So in response to the, you're a candidate for the insane asylum.
Right.
I have a card on my wall. It's been there for as long as I can remember. It says every morning I wake up and I have to decide between saving the world, achieving world peace, saving the whales, you know, creating a great world. Makes it kind of hard to plan the day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we
You gotta focus.
and we actually get caught up a little bit in that, that sometimes we have such visions, and they sometimes don't end up in anything because they're not organized, they're not focused, and yeah. So we're gonna go on with Tiferet, but it's a good start. It's a good start.
This was a great